Greetings and thank you for coming into the room for another one of Miss Akimi's recordings and streams. This particular topic is super disturbing. I have actually done previous recordings that you can definitely go look through and select. The titles are specific to Alabama. And this one is actually no different when it comes to the treatment of the deceased. So there was a video not too long ago where news came out that there were 215 bodies that were discovered in shallow graves behind Alabama jail. And the families were led to believe that these people were missing. Yeah, they were missing to them, but they weren't missing to those that put them back there. And so that I don't, it's hard to find any updated information on that before more information comes out and has been released. So now we're dealing with the prison system, which I also did a video on that, on the conditions of the prison system in the state of Alabama. And so to add further catastrophe and shame to how Alabama is handling the residents, whether they're incarcerated, there's just so many unanswered questions. Now we're dealing with families that are receiving their fellow family members that have been incarcerated in the prison system at home with missing organs. Yeah, you heard that right. So now you got families that are actually getting bodies of their loved ones with no organs. And that presents huge, huge questions and problems. And basically, I was under the understanding that it was law that the families have to provide permission to have organs donated to certain organizations, institutions, and that has to be authorized by family members. In this case, there is actual data suggesting that the warden are actually signing the documents and providing permission for these places that are interested in doing scientific research to obtain these organs without the family's consent or permission or knowledge. So there's going to be a video suggesting and providing some information. There's two videos. So the first one, and you will find the links in the description box for you to be able to go do your own due diligence and do your own research, personal research on these topics if you want to discover more information that may or may not be available at this time. But this first video is going to actually, there's a brief interview for an attorney of a few of the families that are suing the state. And the particular, I think that Alabama University, which has gotten a substantial amount of the organs. I think they're on the lawsuit as well. But I will let the video actually speak for itself.
A new federal lawsuit is taking on the Alabama Department of Corrections after an inmate's body was returned to his family missing an organ. He was returned to them without a heart, and he is not the only inmate returned in a similar condition. An autopsy was conducted on 43-year-old Brandon Dotson shortly after he died in prison. But when his body was returned, his loved ones discovered his heart was missing. Instead, an investigation suggests the organ was taken by forensic pathologists at the University of Alabama, Birmingham for medical research without the family's consent.
Okay, so as I stated at the beginning of the video, without the family's consent, this young man's organs were donated for scientific research, without their knowledge, without their permission. And now, from my understanding, there are strict rules and laws in place for autopsies for people that become deceased within the walls of the penitentiaries. And that's pretty much federal, but we're speaking on specifically Alabama, and in the state of Alabama, there are definitely reinforcements that are in writing as far as the laws go, and they're very specific as to and clear as to who, what, why, and how these organs become procured, and who can get permission, who cannot get permission legally, under what conditions. And there's a lot of reasons why. So we'll discuss that in a moment.
Joining us now is the Dotson family attorney, Lauren Ferrano. Lauren, we appreciate you joining us. And can we start with you just sharing a little more about this case? How did Brandon's family discover that his heart was missing in the first place?
Sure. So Brandon's family learned that his heart was missing because they hired a second pathologist to conduct an autopsy. Alabama's prisons have been in crisis now for years, and they didn't trust the results that were going to come from the Department of Corrections itself. So when they reached into their retirement savings to hire the second pathologist, the pathologist told them that a heart was not in the body.
So the first pathologist was hired by the state, right? And whatever information they got from that first pathologist, the family evidently raised some red flags, enough for them to go into their retirement, and their savings, their life savings, in order to retain and hire a second independent pathologist. And it was that pathologist that confirmed that there was a missing organ, and in this case, the heart. As we know, oftentimes when people are incarcerated for long periods of time within the prison system, a lot of their families don't have the means to hire and to investigate further, to find out things as such. Because I don't think that normally we would, in a normal world, we would question, you know, the bodies that the families get back from the state would be partially gone, right? And so, like I said, there had to be some red flags in order for this family to go to the extremes, to dip into their life savings in order to hire a second independent pathologist. And their fears were confirmed that there was definitely some hanky panky going on, and that their loved one was missing a whole heart when they received his remains.
And since then, we've learned that many other families have been impacted as well.
I mean, as you mentioned, this is not the only instance of an inmate being returned without their organs. We know another Alabama family had to bury their father without any of his organs after they were removed in an autopsy. Does the University of Alabama have any right to these organs? Do they need the families to consent?
We do believe that they need the families to consent. And right now they are using the consent of the wardens to take these organs and use them for whatever purpose they see fit. The law is very clear that it requires family consent for the retention of organs. And what we're seeing is these people who are dying in prison custody being treated in a way that no other person in society is being treated. They're being treated less than. And the wardens are giving these permissions that they don't actually have the authority to give.
So the law is very clear in the state of Alabama. And this attorney is doing her homework and her due diligence, because that's why there's legitimacy to a lawsuit being filed, and there's depth to it. And so it's going to be interesting to see what the outcome of this case is, because as you will hear her say, she is getting more and more calls as this situation gains more media coverage and becomes more known. There are other families that are reaching out to her as well for representation. This is a lot, you guys.
Department of Corrections states that autopsies are only performed when an inmate's death is suspicious or unnatural. Does the Dotson family have any clarity over what exactly happened to their son?
We don't have much clarity about anything. There was a hearing that we had to try to determine where is this heart. And I think all of us left that hearing more confused than we were when we went in. The Department of Corrections says we don't perform autopsies, and yet they have an autopsy agreement with the University of Alabama.
Ooh, so they're perjuring themselves, because that for her to be so specific and so factual, then that should be in writing. Okay, they always say there should be a paper trail. Wherever that paper trail leads, that now the prison has been in contract with the University of Alabama. This is interesting.
They say the wardens don't give permission, and yet we have prior autopsies from previous years that show that the warden is the one who gave permission. So we are still very much in the investigative phase. All we know is that University of Alabama is engaged in a practice through the consent of the Department of Corrections to take organs without family permission.
How long?
Okay, so that is a violation on many levels, right? That's crazy. So there's a lack of consent. It causes legal implications, right? And now she made a statement that this is actually, they're finding information that this has been going on for some years, right? So I don't know. They have to have some type of organ retention practices in place, and there has to be an issue about deep decomposition when it comes to the body, because these bodies deteriorate without flowing blood in them and without living pumping organs. They deteriorate pretty quickly. And so in order to remove organs that are viable for scientific research and data, timing has to be of the essence, right? Just using some common sense in this area. So with just those being some of the factors to consider, this has been definitely systematic. It has been probably gone under the radar for a substantial amount of time because of the just not knowing with the families. And if there are red flags, a lot of them don't have the finances or the resources to, retain independent pathologists in order to confirm or deny their fears or their suspicions about their, the state of their loved ones when they get them from the state and from the prison. So this is sad.
How often do you suspect this might be happening? I mean, do you think there are some families who are receiving their loved one's body back and they are not funding a second autopsy of their own?
Absolutely. How many families have thousands of dollars to have a second autopsy? So right now I'm in touch with multiple families. I got a call again this morning from a new family that discovered through they were able to hire a second pathologist, and they discovered that all of the organs were missing as well. But in most instances, the family is burying their loved one and they don't know that this is happening. Based off of the numbers that we currently have access to, we suspect that at least dozens, if not hundreds, of families have been impacted.
So what does justice look like for this family? What changes do you and the Dotson family hope the federal suit will spur?
Well, we certainly want to raise awareness, and we appreciate the coverage of this important issue. Ultimately, we just want the university to have to ask for consent from the family. We all support medical research. And if the family says yes, then I have no problem with the organs being taken. But right now, the law is not being followed, and the university is taking advantage of a vulnerable population.
All right, Lauren Farino, I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's super sad. It's actually enraging as well, because now you're defiling again in a different format the deceased. Just like with the 215 bodies that were just discarded beneath the surface of the dirt behind the jail where they were able to be ravaged and eaten by wildlife and crows. This is unacceptable. And like she said, the biggest thing that we can do at this time is bring awareness. One of the ways that we can do this is by sharing this stream with one or two people or more that we, of people that we find would be able to spread the word themselves and to get this information out amongst the masses, because most mainstream media is not going to cover this. And this needs to be brought to the forefront. What in the hell is going on in Alabama, y'all? This is crazy. So if you would like to stream, make sure that all of your notifications are set, or your notifications are set to all, and to share this stream. Again, if no other reason, just to bring awareness. Try not to make these recordings long and to the point, but provide enough information to be able to inform the people that this is going on. On one of my live streams, I actually had a resident of Alabama that worked in the penal system that actually, and I'm going to provide that link in the description as well, so you can feel free to go back and view that live. And she gave her firsthand account and personal testimony of her experience of working inside that prison and some of the conditions that she witnessed while she was there and the practices. So this is super disturbing, you guys. Okay, so I'm going to show one more video, and then we'll go ahead and check up on out of here. So let's give me a moment.
Your organs to science is a noble thing to do. Do it. Write it on your license. Make sure you do it, right? It's noble, but having your organs taken from you in secret
let me pause right there. So I'm going to definitely disavow that and provide the suggestion that you do not. You do what you want. I'm just saying, give it some thought, and I would not advise that you put that on your driver's license. That will be, if you know, you know. If you don't, do some research. But to bring attention that you would just willfully, upon your demise, donate your organs is, to me, you can make a different decision. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But the way she started that, I have to speak up on that.
After you die, for reasons unknown, with no apparent authorization, well, that is something that'll get y'all sued. And in Alabama, two separate families say the remains of their loved ones who died in state prisons were literally gutted. Charles Singleton died back in 2021. He was 74, and when his daughter attempted to plan a funeral, she was told it would be, quote, difficult to prepare his body for viewing, end quote, because of its, quote, noticeable state of decomposition and, quote, advanced skin slippage.
Okay, so this is my first time actually hearing this video, this portion of the video. So decomposition is absolutely an issue. And, this man couldn't even get a proper burial because his body was in such a bad state. It's crazy.
That's super revolting, but there's more. The mortician reported that all of Singleton's internal organs, including his brain, were missing. Reportedly, there had been an autopsy at the University of Alabama, Birmingham.
So his brain was missing as well. What is going on, everybody? What is going on? So if we're just finding this information out, chances are this has been going on for years. 4 years. But why is it just the year of exposure, or are they moving in haste because they're being careless and or they don't care if we know or not. But these studies and this information that's coming out is alarming, and it's coming out commonly weekly. At least that's the way it's being given to us. And so I'm sure if you do your research, now there are endless stories and testimonies of this same atrocity being given across this country, possibly across the world. But what is going on to where there's no discretion anymore? You got wardens making backdoor deals with bodies that ultimately should be returned to their families, and they're getting pieces and botched up bodies back to the families, and they expect for the families to just swallow that. This is crazy. This is crazy.
Officials there won't say why or what happened to Singleton's organs. The state does say that dead inmates are generally autopsied only when deaths are considered unlawful, suspicious, or unnatural, but Charles Singleton's death was none of those things. So this is all coming out now as part of a lawsuit over a second and very similar case from last November. This one involves a 43-year-old Alabama prisoner named Brandon Dotson, who was found dead for reasons unknown. And when his family hired their own pathologist to investigate, wouldn't you know it, Brandon's heart was nowhere to be found. Their suit accuses the Alabama Department of Corrections of, quote, appalling misconduct, nothing short of grave robbery, end quote. That's why I called Joseph Scott Morgan, because he's a renowned death expert, and he's a distinguished scholar of applied forensics at Jacksonville State University.
So we're getting ready to hear from a death expert, and this is going to be interesting. His take on why and why all of this is going on.
Alabama. What is happening? It sounds very macabre and very weird, Joe Scott.
Yeah, it does, Ash. How are you doing? Happy New Year, by the way. Yeah, horrible stuff. I was shocked when you guys reached out to me. I'd not been following these cases. And I will tell you this. Most people that die in custody, it is a requirement. And it's generally understood industry practice that when someone dies in custody, and this can even mean someone that is, say, on a hospital unit in a prison, that body must be examined, because I don't care if they're in a hospital unit at a prison or in the backseat of a patrol car. That's an in-custody death. That means that the state is responsible for their mortal remains. And these autopsies, Ash, are very, very thorough. I've been involved in them over the years. And so the fact that these bodies were handled in the manner in which they're handled, in both cases, there was significant decomposition, is quite shocking, even by my standards.
So the bodies were badly decomposed by the time the families got them. They were botched. There were organs missing. Excuse me. There were organs missing. And in the first instance that we heard in this video, that body wasn't even fit to have an open casket or proper viewing in a funeral. Skin slippage, badly decomposed body. This is just as a family member that would receive somebody in that kind of condition, I can't imagine how I would respond. There will probably be so many different mixture of emotions that I will probably act irrationally to start off with. So I feel and I pray for the families that are receiving their loved ones in this state.
So what's this business where the state says dead inmates are generally autopsied only when their deaths are considered, quote, unlawful, suspicious, or unnatural, meaning they're not always autopsied?
Yeah, they're not always autopsied. I think sometimes saying autopsy implies that would be a thorough, complete autopsy. But at minimum, you must do an external examination, do blood draws, X-rays, all these sorts of things. And this must be done by a forensic pathologist, not a hospital pathologist. You want someone that can examine for trauma. The reason for this, Ashley, is...
Okay, so let's go back and read that. It says autopsy consent includes consent for final disposition of the organs and tissues unless specifically requested. Organs are not returned to the body. So that's the University of Alabama making the statement that this is their standard practice. includes consent for final disposition of the organs and tissues unless specifically requested. Organs are not returned to the body. So what do the state laws say? Because according to the attorney, she has stated that the organs have to be returned to the body unless they're donated or the family's consent is provided for it to be otherwise.
This, Ashley, is the fact that if an individual is in the custody of the state, you want to make sure that they weren't abused while they were in the custody of the state. But here's the rub. Anytime an autopsy is performed and there are no organs left, what does that leave for the family? If they want to have an autopsy performed,
I may have missed what you just said. You just said anytime an autopsy is performed, there are no organs left. Did I mishear you?
I don't know if you did, but this is what I meant. If an autopsy is performed and the organs are not returned with that body, okay, and the family has a desire to have a second autopsy, what's their hired pathologist going to look at other than the tissue samples that were taken in the original case? So it's an uneven playing field, if you will. The family.
So that actually adds perspective to another perspective. So if they don't have the organs and all they have is tissue samples in the external part of the body, then how are they to determine how they died or to confirm that the death certificate and the death report or the explanation that was given coincides with the autopsy from an independent pathologist that the family may be interested in obtaining? So there's a lot of different factors to consider here. But it sounds like a win-win for the prison system because you know that the black market, it is a multi-billion-dollar industry when it comes to the organ harvesting. So that'll be all I say on that level in this video. But man, this is crazy.
Family has a right to be able to look into the deaths of their family members.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com.
Whew. Okay, so to bring awareness again, I wanted to provide unfortunately another sad turn of practices that are happening in Alabama through the penal system when it comes to dead bodies and remains of loved ones that have passed away within the confines of the prison. So again, as this story updates, I will keep abreast and provide additional recordings or lives to keep everybody updated on the current status of what's going on, because this seems like it's going to be an evolutionary story, and it probably will be going on for a while, because I'm sure that as time progresses, more and more people will come forth, families will come forth and want to know the truth about their loved ones, what happened to them, and at the very least be properly compensated as a small form of justice. So again, if you don't mind, like the stream, share it. Make sure your notifications are set to all. So as these uploads and these videos come to surface, you will get notified. If you're listening to the replay, you can always speed it up a little bit in order to get through it. I know people's time is their most valuable asset. So yeah, with that being said, peace and blessings to all. And until the next stream, be well.